this has been a week of non-endorsements of the Harris-Walz campaign. So big non-endorsements. What do you mean by non-endorsements, Francesca? Well, a few key players in this country, unions, a pop star, and a movement of uncommitted voters have decided not to endorse Kamala Harris outright. This is endorsement enforcement. Let's start with the most maybe upsetting for the most obvious, which none of these are really all that upsetting, but this one is upsetting, which are the Teamsters. So the Teamsters, obviously the Sean O'Brien, I believe, is the head of the Teamsters, and he was the leader who spoke at the RNC to much the chagrin of his own membership and to a lot of union members and working people who are like, what the hell? Donald Trump and Republicans haven't done shit for the working class, but okay. They just declined to endorse a candidate in this election. They put out a statement that said, our mission as a union representatives is clear: to be honest and upfront, to be inclusive, and above all, transparent with our membership. As the strongest, most democratic labor union in America, it was vital for our members to drive this endorsement process. Democrats, Republicans, and independents proudly call our union home, and we have a duty to represent and respect every one of them. We strongly encourage all our members to vote in the upcoming election and to remain engaged in the political process. But this year, no candidate for president has earned the endorsement of the Teamsters International Union. While 10,000 Teamsters at the United Airlines are currently negotiating a new agreement, tens of thousands of railroad Teamsters were forced to accept a new contract implemented by Congress without member support in 2022. Bring in some receipts. In a roundtable discussions with Trump in January and Harris this month, neither candidate promised to not to intervene to force similar RLA contracts, which undermines workers' bargaining leverage. So sort of sticking up for the railroad workers here. Harris pledged, if elected, to sign the PRO Act, an essential piece of labor legislation strengthening union protections, and criticized dangerous right-to-work laws that are enacted to bankrupt unions. Trump would not commit to veto national right-to-work legislation if he returned to the White House. I don't know. I understand that both of them might have come down the wrong way on the railroad stuff, but like one of them is just like, I believe in passing the PRO Act, and I don't believe in the right to national right to work laws. And Trump is like, nah, I don't know where I stand on that. I mean, this is the equivalent of like Planned Parenthood being like, some of our members have decided we don't know where we stand, when it comes to Harris or Trump on abortion. So we're just going to non-endorse right now. Like, it's just so egregious. And I've heard from Teamsters just anecdotally that are like, this was not a Democratic vote. This does not represent us. And in fact, a lot of Teamsters have broken off and said that they do endorse Harris.
Yeah, I mean, those grounds are especially specious, right? Like, I understand that there is a critique of Harris and Walz from the left and even from the labor left on certain grounds, but that I will say that I believe strongly in credit where credit's due, and that the Biden administration has been extremely pro-labor in comparison to like most administrations in American history, right? And
Right.
so I think like, if you're withholding an endorsement, that's one thing, but like it doesn't make sense to play to like act like these people are the same. Donald Trump believes that like after you're done, after someone delivers you something, you should be able to throw them in a wood chipper and sell their wood chipped organ slurry for money. So, and like that is not the belief of the Biden administration, or presumably a future Harris administration.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, like, there's some good things that Biden has done. Obviously, the
Absolutely.
foreign policy has outshone a lot of it in the last year. But yes, when it comes to the National Labor Relations Board, that is huge, and going after the union busters,
Mhm.
and walking the picket line with the UAW, like just like
Which
really.
is, yeah, I mean, I think these are like, I don't want to presume what outweighs what to whom, like
Hmm.
but I do think that these are real issues, and it is not like, well, they both have their flaws on labor domestically, and it's like, no, one of them would replace every working person in America with a robot that he could have sex with, and then the other one like has not solved our eroding union density and consumer corporate consolidation on their own. I think it's like this issue specific, or I mean, among others, there is an enormous gulf.
Yes, 100%. On this issue, you're just like, what are you doing,
Yeah.
Sean? You're the bad Sean.
And I think he gets dinged too because of speaking at the RNC, right? Like if he had this strong policy of being like, I'm to the left of every major party politician on a national level, then you go, oh, I see what critique he's levying. But I think you do get to kind of raise your eyebrows when someone who has spoken at the RNC is taking this kind of stance.
Yeah, and like, so I did stand up for the United Electrical Workers Union. Yow. I don't know. I forgot what it was. I was like trying to pronounce it.
Both the acronym
Yow.
and what it sounds like when you put your fingers in an electrical socket.
Exactly. I think I attempted to make that joke. It was really, really fun. So the people who hired me for the show, the leaders were like, this was 2017. They go, we've got some Trumpers in the audience, but give them hell. Like, they were very resolute. Like, yeah, there's some membership that voted for Trump, but they're going to like you and you should just do your thing and don't worry about it. And also, they're dumbasses. And it's like, yeah, because they are, looking out for the broader good of the union. They're not just sort of like, well, we've got some people who, believe in whatever they believe in, things that will literally undermine our very like ability to exist. But and instead of calling, anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's move on. So the next non-endorsement we have comes from the Uncommitted Movement. Remember, in a lot of states in the primary, instead of Joe Biden, there was a slot of voting uncommitted, and hundreds of thousands of people in states across this country did vote uncommitted in the Democratic primary. And it was a way to leverage the anger and righteous anger around Biden's handling of Gaza. However, that was when he was running for president. Biden drops out. There is a lot of excitement around Kamala Harris from many different sectors. The Uncommitted Movement is still and has been calling for a weapons embargo. They did call and ask for a speaker at the DNC, which they did not receive. They also asked for a meeting with Kamala Harris. They did not get that meeting. So they, this last week, decided to not endorse a candidate for president. Here's part of their statement. We urge uncommitted voters to register anti-Trump voters and vote up and down the ballot. Our focus remains on building a broad anti-war coalition both inside and outside the Democratic Party. Pro-war forces like AIPAC want to drive us out of the Democratic Party. We're here to stay. Movements have long worked to rid the Democratic Party of hateful forces, segregationists, anti-union, anti-choice, and anti-LGBTQ proponents, the NRA, big oil, and we will work in that legacy to rid our party of AIPAC's pro-war extremism. Building on the work of Uncommitted, we invite stakeholders to the Democratic Party. In the Democratic Party coalition, progressive civil rights, labor, racial justice, reproductive rights, climate, immigrant rights, disability rights, people of faith, young people, and more to join us in our campaign to push our Democratic leadership to align with the majority of Democratic voters who support the urgent call for a stop to illegal and morally reprehensible weapons transfers through our campaign, not another bomb, both now and in the next administration. They also said they do not endorse a third-party candidate. But they do not explicitly endorse Kamala Harris because of her refusal to pivot enough from Joe Biden's stance, and again, in the form of delivering weapons after more weapon shipments. But I really like that part of their statement because it's like, it really shows me hope as someone who got into politics, radical politics through the Iraq War and my anti-war stance. It's like we've needed an anti-war wing of the Democratic Party for so long. It has inspired some of the biggest movements in our lifetimes. and we deserve to transform this uncommitted movement into an anti-war movement. It is on its face, Josh, I'm not going to lie, I was slightly disappointed hearing that they weren't endorsing Harris. But then reading about it and really understanding it and then seeing the reality, you're like, yeah, man, I don't see how they can. And
And
yeah,
I
go ahead.
I think this is like an interesting and principled statement that will make almost everyone mad. Because I think, right, I think there are people who will say they should endorse Kamala Harris because a Harris presidency will be better for more people and harmful for fewer people than a Trump presidency. And I certainly agree with that logic. I think there's also people who will say, when it says we urge you to register anti-Trump wink 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 votes up and down the ballot. I think there will be people on that side who go like, well, we know what that means though, right? Like we know who the alternative is, especially because they're like, not a third party, like anti-Trump, but also not a third party. So it is like kind of clear that level of pragmatism, right? Because I do
Yeah.
think an uncommitted vote in a primary is a different ball game than a third party vote in a general election.
And it's a different ball game in a general election where Kamala Harris is the nominee and not Joe Biden. And
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I don't think Biden would ever change course when it comes. I think he's proven he will never change
Yeah,
course.
I think
But
that's
I
true.
think, yeah, but I'm also curious because arguably he would need these votes in key swing states more than Kamala Harris seems like she needs them. If Kamala Harris loses in some of these key swing states, specifically where there's an Arab and Muslim community, it's like we all know fucking why. And it's also because you, again, from the start of the show, have there not been enough like real meaningful outreach to the Arab and Muslim communities who are hurting, who are in the crosshairs, whose family members are being killed. But anyway, all to say that perhaps she's just riding her, the energy and like, oh, ironically, the very thing that maybe booted, in my opinion, Biden out of the race in the first place is also what is allowing Kamala Harris to not have to address this issue. Do you know what I'm saying? Like their power has dwindled now that Kamala Harris is the nominee because she
Because the push was not Biden essentially at first, right? The uncommitted vote. That's what an uncommitted vote, or to push Biden to make a different and better choice. And
right,
I
and
mean,
I think that because she's getting so much more there's so much more excitement
mhm,
that the key votes that she would need from these uncommitted voters are not as key anymore
sure,
because her
sure, sure,
support is
sure.
so
The tide
strong.
is rising. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at a rally maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago, and people from the uncommitted movement were speaking, I thought, very movingly about where not people say we're trying to sink the Harris Walls ticket. That's not what they were saying. We, meaning the speaker, they're saying what we're trying to do is to give them the opportunity to earn our trust. And I thought that
Yeah.
really made sense. And so to say, like, look, you didn't do the thing that we were asking, I understand that. But then I think the pragmatic statement of we are against Trump. This is
Right.
not, we're not saying vote against Kamala Harris. We're saying Trump is bad. Don't vote for him.
Right.
Don't vote for the third party candidate. But like and I think it's a really tough situation. Like you were saying earlier, I'm sorry to ramble as we go
No.
along, but like, I think it's a really difficult situation because I really do think that like, that a second Donald Trump presidency would continue to throw vulnerable people to the wolves in just increasing, escalating, uncaring numbers. And I think like it it doesn't help a ton to be like, yeah, I guess I'll vote for Kamala Harris, but it fucking sucks. Cause it's like,
Right.
well, do you want this? Do you prefer this outcome or don't you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I
Yeah.
think that kind of like, and I'm not saying this about the uncommitted movement, just like individual people that I've spoken to. And I'm like, I'll just circle back and say, I do think there is something powerful in going like, they didn't get where we wanted to go. However, the alternative is worse, and we urge you to fight against the alternative.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it's a non-endorsement, and that's a solid non-endorsement of like, we understand the greater threat, but also this person specifically for this community. And it isn't just Arab and Muslims, it's people who cannot, bring themselves, and who've been rightfully horrified by everything that they've seen, and it's a hard line to walk. I mean, I am someone who is squarely said, we need to beat Trump. We need, like, we cannot fuck around. But I understand. Like, I understand not being able to bring yourself. I don't actually, I have to say, I don't personally understand not being able to bring myself not to vote for Kamala Harris, but I understand that can be a position.
Yeah.
Um,
When there are people that are like, this issue has been too painful for me to do it,
yeah,
I understand that where that comes from, even though I think that it is the better outcome is voting for is a vote for the Harrison Walls ticket that would again mitigate the harm. And
right.
it's at this point it is a binary choice. There isn't another replacement candidate that we're going to get this time.
Yeah, exactly. But sort of in the same vein of Uncommitted, but sort of Uncommitted on a celebrity level.
Yeah,
Chappell Roan, obviously Midwestern princess, pop star who's risen to massive fame this summer, has come out with a statement, or she was being interviewed by The Guardian, and basically said she doesn't really feel like either candidate. She doesn't feel like she needs to endorse anybody because she, quote, has so many issues with our government in every way. There are so many things I would want to change. So I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides. I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills, use your vote, vote small, vote for what's going on in your city. The change she wants to see in the US in this election year, she says instantly, is trans rights. They cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period. So I appreciate that. And obviously, again, I think for those of you folks who are like, well, obviously Trump's going to be worse for trans people. I mean, yes, that's absolutely correct.
for sure.
But, and this is maybe more to the point, Chappell Roan has also been outspoken around Palestine. She has donated part of the proceeds of some merchandise to aid for Palestine. She said, it is my duty to help send resources to a community that's absolutely being destroyed. And, and this is also someone whose own songs have been used by the Harris campaign to sell merchandise themselves. They came out with a hat that was in the stylings of the Midwestern Princess
Yeah, yeah.
Chappell Roan hat that says Harris Walls. And it's like, so people are hounding her on this, like, not, how dare you not come out? But I'm like, nah, man, she's a young singer who's seeing what we're all seeing. Everyone, I think, knows as like an openly queer woman also like where she stands in the whole fascism versus
Mhm.
no fascism stance, but also this is a little bit of a fuck you. This is a little bit of a like, nah, man, you haven't done anything other than kind of bite off my style to earn my vote in any particular way.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I just feel like she's really going through it in the public eye right now.
Yeah.
And it's you know, I I understand again, I it's just I think I gosh, I because I really do like her and think she is like a compelling, thoughtful person. But I think when you say things like, you know, the whole government is the problem, man, is like I
It's
think
a
that,
little,
it just doesn't I think she's been being put in a position where like it's it's just really tough right
yeah.
now. And I
Well, I think the
and
what, oh, sorry, keep going.
no, I
You
was just gonna
finish.
say, like, I think she like you said, she's been outspoken with her values, but again, I wish she had used not even like I want her to do better. I just wish, like, for the sake of this conversation of people like really beating up on her, I wish she had been a little bit more thorough in saying like what the problems are, rather
Yes.
than just like it's the fucking government, dude.
Yes, and I think that it is easy when you are surrounded by like like-minded people, young people, progressives, leftists, queer people, like you are largely, and good for you, insulated from this like toxic, discussion that's happening, which is when people say both sides, it is like code for kind of like I've morally flattened Trump
Yeah, I think that's a
and
great way to
Harris.
put it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, so it's what it sounds like she's saying is she's both sidesing it, which I think a lot of people are interpreting it as
Which I don't think that's what she
right,
means.
which I don't think she is what she means. And just to play you a little, not play you, but this is what she said at a concert. She's dressed as Statue of Liberty, and this is the vibe, y'all.
I am in drag of the biggest queen of all. But in case you had forgotten what's etched on my pretty little toes, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. That means freedom and trans rights. That means freedom and women's rights. And it especially means freedom for all people and oppressed. It especially means freedom for all oppressed people in occupied territories.
So there she is. I mean, she doesn't say Palestine, but she effectively does.
Yeah, and she's talked about Palestine before. I think she like her politics are not opaque, but I do, I think that answer to that question in that instance was like I think it's possible to not even take it out of context, but not bring in a broad enough context for people to have given her the benefit of the doubt, that don't necessarily know her politics in that way.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's dumb to look to celebrities, and we will see. She may clarify what she meant. She
Mhm.
may change her tune. I mean, we are like 41 days out from the election. It is insane, and it is important to actually keep your eye on like a bigger picture. So at once, I think it's stupid to look to her. I also think it's important in some ways, but I also like really just don't want to sound like an older scoldy like
No, I don't,
boomer.
and I don't feel, I don't feel scoldy about it. Like I think it's really tough to be, I imagine becoming household name famous within a year and being put on the spot for stuff like this and maybe not yet having your ready-made soundbitey versions of your politics
Right.
because like you're like I'm a singer and I'm pretty clear about what I think, but to not have the interview version of that,
It's
she
hard
was
for
put in a
me,
tough
dude. I mean,
space.
especially if her politics are left, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they're clearly more left than like Taylor Swift. It's like
for sure.
it is a hard thing to talk about when you don't see yourself represented or you don't see like
Mhm.
what your hopes and dreams represented. It is a fucking terrible general,
Yeah.
not terrible, but it's a general election. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.